life like as a academic of physiotherapist?
It works differently because you can part-time work as a demonstrator. It differs from how it works in India, because there you're just teaching and there is no sir ma'am system, nothing like that. They are helping patients and you're just assisting them, observing them.
Are you researching more about how to advance physiotherapy treatments?
My research is on Parkinson's. I'm doing
Really?
Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disease, so it can happen due to various causes, but the most number of cases that has been seen so far is idiopathic. So idiopathic means that it can occur without any cause. It has no history or no cause, there's no injury, there's no disorder.
Okay, so now I want to ask you, how do you as scientists figure out from 10 patients, okay, this is genetic based, this is environmental based, and this we just don't know? How do you do that categorization?
There are different types of symptoms that you can see. If there are viruses that can cause Parkinson's, then you know, okay, it is linked to something. But if you see there's no cause, you have done genetic testing, there is no link, and it has just occurred at and around the age of 50 or 40, then you can see that it's a typical idiopathic Parkinson's. But if you're seeing it before the age of 40s, around 20 to 40s, we are seeing so many cases of young onset Parkinson's or juvenile Parkinson's. They are mostly related, they mostly have a background of genes related to the disease.
Wonderful to have you here, Jagriti Modi, on Raw and Unfiltered. Great to have you here. We are recording.
Likewise, I got
Tell us a bit about you before we go into the flow, and then after the flow, we'll go into some structured questions based on where the head's at for the masses.
Okay.
And also, we are meeting first time, so let's get to know each other a bit first.
Right. Okay, so I am a physiotherapist and currently I'm doing my PhD in New Zealand at University of Otago. And
University of where?
Otago?
PhD.
Yeah,
PhD in physiotherapy.
yeah.
Wow, the last podcast I did was PhD in physics. And
Oh.
now I'm having PhD in physiotherapist.
Oh, nice.
This is interesting. Physicist to physiotherapist. Which year are you in?
Sorry?
Which year are you in of the PhD?
I'm just going to complete my first year in March.
It's a 5-year PhD?
No, just 3, hopefully.
And you did some masters and bachelors also in physio, or how did
Yeah, no, I did my bachelor's and master's in physiotherapy.
about your journey of just your journey of how it all where you are at, how did you get here in the last, let's say, 10 years, 15 years, briefly?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I started my journey with my bachelor's in physiotherapy, and during that, I met 2 of my favorite faculties. I'm still in touch with them, and they inspired me actually. I mean, I'm here, I'm doing my PhD only because of them. I asked them, what did you do to reach there? Because I was literally inspired. She used to teach us neuro, and that's how I have did my master's in neurology as well. So neurophysiotherapy.
Where are your roots from? Tell us.
I am from New Delhi, India.
And you studied there, bachelor's?
Yes.
Where?
In Amity University. Both
Noida.
bachelor's and master's, yeah.
Nice. I used to live near there actually.
Oh,
Yeah, my parents lived next to it. I went to Amity School for 2 years actually.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Small world.
So we're Amity as well.
Small world, you see. Never thought that we'll be, meeting like that.
Yeah. So you did your physio bachelor's in Amity
Yeah, both bachelor's and master's.
in physiotherapy.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were staying in Noida, Delhi during that time, the whole time?
No, I used to travel from Delhi to Noida.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then after, right away, you decided to do a PhD, or you worked sometime?
I did work for around in a year or two after my master's. I was in, I don't know if you know that, it's in Delhi only, Brain and Spine Institute, and the other one is in the Ames. And so yeah, just for a short point of time, not
Yeah.
long.
So you were. Can you tell us specifically? So this was after masters, right? You
Yes.
went. Okay. But after bachelor's, you worked, or you just went straight into
No,
masters?
went straight into masters because I didn't want to have any gap in my CV. But turns out it doesn't matter. I mean, I was that typical kid, but it doesn't matter now.
And during bachelor's and masters, were you practicing already on somewhere, or no? Not so much.
I mean, it's a part of our curriculum to go to hospitals and clinics, but not as a paid in- intern or an employee. Yeah.
And you liked it at that moment itself? Like, how did you know, or when did you know, okay, this is my thing?
I mean, so what people who are doing physiotherapy, they can either move into clinicals or can go in academic. But I was more inclined into academic. I liked teaching only because of the faculties that I'm mentioning. So they actually inspired me, and then I asked them that how did you reach there, and they told me the steps that you have to do masters, and then you can do PhD, and then you can be appointed as a lecturer, as a professor on. Yeah.
So you're more focused on the academic side of
Yes.
physiotherapy. Okay.
Yes.
Can you now go in depth with that? What does that mean? How does that look like in your day-to-day life? What do you do to like educate people on this? And how does, yeah, what's your life like as a academic of physiotherapist?
I mean, I am in the process of becoming one, so that's why I am pursuing PhD. But right now, here it works differently because you can part time work as a demonstrator. So I work with the students here, bachelors of round, I think, first and second year. So what we do here is we assist them, we help them. It differs from how it works in India, because there you're just teaching, and it's a it's not a it's a kind of a hierarchy system. But it here differ. I mean, it's more of a interactive teaching. You help them. There's no hierarchy, there is no sir ma'am system, nothing like that. You they are helping patients, and you're just assisting them, observing them. And yeah, I mean, I like that more than just being in clinicals.
Hmm.
And
Why?
that, yeah, but I think that might change when I have moved here, and I see how things are different, and it works more in a better way. So I don't
Why
know
do
where.
you like the academic part more than the clinicals?
I mean, I love teaching. I love when I can educate them. I love to. I mean, it's more like I am not staying stagnant. I am reading more, so I can teach them more, or I can share my knowledge.
Okay,
That's.
so share some knowledge with me about physiotherapy that the others can also gain from. So
Mhm.
what is you as a teacher of a physiotherapist look like? Like share some knowledge with us.
I mean, right now, what I am doing is more in clinicals and helping them become a clinical physiotherapist. But if we'll talk about in an academic one here, it differs in a way that you just ask them to read a topic, you go and present with them, and then you study with them by presenting a case. So for instance, I asked them, this and this is a patient, they fell 2 days ago. What do you think the prognosis will look like? What do you think, um, what are the red flags? Where do you think you should take precautions? How do you think we should move ahead? So that's how it moves here freely, and it's in more of a coherent way. And when you're talking about clinicals, it's more on hands-on practice. You have patients coming in, and then you can, or maybe you just have models with students only, and you can teach them on them. Yeah.
Okay. The research you do as a PhD person, are you
Mm-hmm.
also researching more about how to advance physiotherapy treatments,
Oh,
all of that, or no?
sorry, I think we missed this point. So my research is on Parkinson's. I'm doing
Oh,
my research.
really? My grandmother had Parkinson's.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hmm.
She left her body with that only. So let's go into that. Let's go into Parkinson's. So, okay, please enlighten us.
Yeah, I mean, Parkinson's, so it's a neurodegenerative disease and it can happen to anybody. It can be of idiopathic cause, that means it has no cause at all, or it can be caused due to genetic factors. Genetics is related, but in very few cases. For instance, we can call it around 10 to 15% of cases.
Is genetic in Parkinson's?
Yes, yes, can
Are we
be.
sure of this or no?
Sorry,
Are we absolutely certain of this or no?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can also be
Okay,
caused.
let's do this. Let's take just Parkinson's for now. If you can start decoding Parkinson's for us in terms of myths versus what is actually we know as
Okay.
science, where we are at with Parkinson's, its origination, its identification, where we are going with it, its cures, its working with it because it's quite mysterious also in many ways. So just do a proper lecture right now on Parkinson's, mini one,
What?
mini one, mini Parkinson's podcast.
Okay, okay. I can try my best on that.
Of
So, I
course.
mean, Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disease, so it can happen due to various causes, but the most number of cases that has been seen so far is idiopathic. So, idiopathic means that it can occur without any cause. It has no history or no cause, there's no injury, there's no disorder, or there's no link that you can discover how it happened,
So
but
out
it's
of
just.
100%, let's say how many are these cases in Parkinson's?
So if we say genetics, it's around 10 to 15%, environmental around 15 to 20, and the rest of it is idiopathic.
Okay, so now I want to ask you, how do you as scientists figure out from 10 patients, okay, this is genetic based, this is environmental based, and this we just don't know? How do you do that categorization?
So it totally depends upon what are the symptoms. So how do people get it? There are different types of symptoms that you can see. If there are viruses that can cause Parkinson's, then you know, okay, it is linked to something. But if you see there's no cause, you have done genetic testing, there is no link, and it has just occurred at and around the age of 50 or 40, then you can see that it's a typical idiopathic Parkinson's. But if you're seeing it before the age of 40s, around 20 to 40s, we are seeing so many cases of young onset Parkinson's or juvenile Parkinson's. They are mostly related, or maybe mostly are a part of a genetic linking. They mostly have a background of genes related to the disease. And at the same time, environmental causes are also there, maybe caused due to dietary components, pesticides, and yeah, that also helps. Where you live, what you eat, that can also be linked to Parkinson's.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, let's focus on the genetic ones. What are the genes that have been identified? What is the linkages in the genes? What are triggering those genes? Are the environmental factors triggering the genes? Which genes specifically? Like, what is the latest science saying about Parkinson's in this aspect?
So SNCA is the one that is linked. So that is the one that produces a protein, that is alpha synuclein protein, and that helps to release dopamine in our brain. So when dopamine depletes, that's how you see it is linked to Parkinson's. That's the hallmark of the disease of
So
Parkinson's.
SNCA is what exactly?
A gene.
So it's a gene which is where? Do we know where it is in the body or the system?
I'm not sure. I'm not. Yeah.
So let's say SNCA is a gene when it stops working properly is what you're saying.
Yeah, it can mutate. Yeah.
So when it mutates or something, then the body starts releasing less dopamine.
Yes, because of a protein that it produces, that is alpha synuclein. So that helps to regulate the dopamine, so the hormone. So that's how you see, that's how it's linked.
But let's say this SNCA, whatever this is, in this scenario, before, let's say, it is to become Parkinson's or we identify it as Parkinson's, is there a possibility that before it may happen, you can identify that this may be a possibility in this person, and there can be some natural treatments or some medicinal treatments, like
Hmm.
not hardcore medicines, natural treatments to boosting dopamine stuff naturally?
Okay.
Do you think that kind of can work as a genetic gene therapy as well, or something like this?
So that's still in research, because that's why you say the Parkinson's has no cure as of now. But I mean, I would really like to talk about this thing, because I'm also looking in my research the non-motor symptoms, because the hallmark of Parkinson's, you see motor disabilities, as in it affects movement, you see shivering, tremors, the posture changes, the movement gets stiff. But also it has been seen the non-motor symptoms, it develops 10 to 20 years before getting diagnosed of Parkinson's.
The non-motor symptoms being what?
Yeah, so it's like anxiety, depression, maybe constipation, leg movement syndrome, anything like that can.
Driving majority of human population right now. Everybody's
Exactly.
living in constant state of anxiety, going through
Exactly.
depressions, going through all of
That's why
this.
you see there are so many young generation, they are now getting diagnosed of Parkinson's. So that's still in research if it is purely genetic or it has a lot of environmental or stress components related to it.
Do you think primarily it's like an environmental thing based on the society we are living, which may be triggering like the survival genes in a way that they're not able to cope, and so they're going into like almost like this backlash. So they're not able to function at their proper system, and then they just kind of at some point they just kind of react in a way which we call mutation, and then they just kind of these start degrading, and then
No, I
we
mean,
try to bring medication on this to solve, but in the early stages, let's say the patient is depressed or whatever, and you could have reversed it or stopped it with like natural things, but people couldn't do it, and
mhm.
then it's like you end up in a scenario, then it just goes worse and worse and worse, and then you try the medications, and then it's that loop. The body gets kind of addicted to the dopamine hits kind of thing, right? Because they're also, I mean, drugs. This is also drugs, right? What we
Yes,
consume.
yes,
I mean, I've seen it firsthand, so
yeah.
I understand this mechanism really well. So, how to break this loop?
I mean, yeah, again, it just starts from that point that you never know what's going to affect you, but you can definitely prevent that. I mean, like how I've mentioned the environmental factors and what you eat, that everything, for example, pesticides that goes in you, and there are studies that say there is gut-brain relationship with Parkinson's as well. What you eat, the pesticides, they go in your body, they disrupt the gut lining, that the connection that goes into your brain, and that's how you see mutation as well. That's the another factor that you
On
see.
the root level, is Parkinson's a cellular disease or a nervous system related disease? Like, what's the root of Parkinson's?
Nervous system one, because there is
Nervous
low.
system.
Yeah,
So
there's
it's
loss of.
connected to nerves, right?
Sorry.
Nerves.
Yes, I mean, so the dopamine helps you to regulate your movement, your mood, your sense of feeling high, and when that gets depleted in your nervous system, they're not sending information. Your movement gets depressed. They get there's no movement. You feel low. There's no social life. Then
And
that's
so
how.
this is the first thing that happens when people go in depression. When people are in depression,
Yeah, I
dopamine
mean
goes down. They're not able to. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to be anywhere.
that's
It's like
it's a
that's
never
like
ending vicious cycle. Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. It's like I have dealt with so many patients, and they feel awkward, they feel embarrassing to go out, because they feel that if I'm this is the glass, and if I'm trying to hold it, they are not able to hold it properly. They will feel that I might just drop it, and that's embarrassing for me and the people that I'm with outside. So you see, it never stops. But that's how, when you feel that you're seeing, so I'm just moving this topic to the emotional and to the non-motor part, that's how when you see people are suffering, and not just judging them in a way, that because they are, it's not just what you're seeing, it's that's just the tip of an iceberg, because there are so many symptoms that has already related to what has led to that, what you're seeing today.
So, would you say Parkinson's is first, before even being a neurological disorder, it's first like a mental, emotional thing
You
that
can say
triggers the
that.
neurological thing and then it just creeps on?
Yeah, I mean, you can say that it starts from there, but then you slowly see the symptoms, because when you see it, then only you'll believe, right? You can see in a normal layman, if you have hurt yourself, you can't see an injury outside, you'll be like, okay, I mean, you'll be fine. But only the person who has it knows how much it's painful, right? But when you see an abrasion or any kind of injury that's visible, then only you start to take that person seriously, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
And in the research they're doing so much on Parkinson's, other than the medications that are there, which are more just kind of actually just
Substitute.
loop actually. But
Yeah.
these I don't know what they're called, but they're putting things inside people's brain, electrification and all of
Yeah.
this to trigger the nervous system. What's that like? How is that?
I'm not
doing
quite
something?
sure if I'm answering the exact thing that you're referring to, but are you talking about the deep brain stimulation or some kind of stimulation that helps with
Yeah,
increasing?
I don't also know deeply what they're doing exactly, but Europe and all these countries, they're doing a lot of research and they're testing these kind of protocols or experiments where they're putting things inside people's brains to yeah, it could be that, and then they're triggering the motor nervous system.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's how they're just trying to stimulate. They're just trying to increase or delay the prognosis. They're just trying to make things better, because eventually we all know that there's no cure so far. But if we can help them reclaim their body parts, then that's the best that we can do.
What is this? Okay, what is this no cure aspect of Parkinson's? Meaning, when I say, okay, we know there's no cure, now something has come in the body that has been triggered by whatever environmental factors or genetics or whatever, or we don't know. Now it is in the body, it's in the mind, it's in the system. Now we're doing a lot of research, we're observing, we're trying different things, blah, 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 blah. What makes us say, as a researcher, and I mean, this is a great, I guess, question to have, or curiosity to have as well. What makes us say this is not curable? Meaning, instead of that, like, what is the cure? What is this thing? What is this mystery that is Parkinson's, that we are realizing more and more so much that it's so much related to so many other factors as well,
Mhm.
right? So, what is this thing?
I mean, to answer that, I would just say that it doesn't completely go away. I mean, how can you, like how we have mentioned earlier, you treat dopamine deficiency by different medicines, right? But at some point of time, patient gets adapted to the medicines as well. There's this thing called levodopa dosing off, or it doesn't work anymore. So that's how
The
physiotherapy.
body becomes used to it.
Yes, yes. There's no, I mean, that just comes into a leveling of the same of the effect that another medicine do. So that's how it doesn't, just a medicine doesn't help. But that's why we say regular physical activity, exercises, different type of interventions. For instance, that I'm working on is a music intervention. So what we say is, so in Parkinson's there is a loss of internal timing. For instance, if I'm clapping and if I'll ask you to tap along with me, you'll be able to do it because you have a nice connection to what you're seeing, and you can easily coordinate. But in Parkinson's there's loss of coordination, there's loss of internal timing to what they are, to have that timing with the outside stimulus. So what I'm working on right now is to provide music or metronome beats. So while they walk on the beat, they're listening to the beat and they're walking and trying to step on the same beat. How does that work is because the music and the beats that we are, I mean, that has been studied before, but what we are doing is to see if that can help the anxiety, depression and other symptoms that that comes under non-motor symptoms. So if that helps, or is it related just to because there is improvement in their walking, there is improvement in their movements, is that how it's related to improving their anxiety? Is that how they're also improving their depression? So there are certain kind of intervention, but yes, coming back to the question, there's no cure because there's no complete you say there's nothing that can help you completely go away.
Yeah. So also, in relation with the aspect of the aging, so there's a natural aging factor to the body. Body deteriorates. Body.
Yeah.
To be in longevity, to be healthy, you have to maintain your diet. You have to be happy, healthy, purposeful, moving. Movement of
Yeah.
body is very important for natural bodies. So even if you don't do it, regardless of Parkinson's or not, your body
Yeah.
will do it much faster. It will die much faster. It will stop working, right?
So
So when you apply that understanding, very common sense understanding, to the same equation where there's the Parkinson's equation where something happened, mental trauma, blah blah blah, triggered the emotional stuff, that triggered the biology to be like no, right? So that made, along with the age factor, already bodies kind of so created like a blockage almost, which then we notice they have slowed down faster than the age or whatever, blah blah blah, and we categorize it as Parkinson's in that moment, right? How do we categorize Parkinson's in that moment where somebody, let's say, may have gone through something emotionally or mentally, blah blah blah, and their body and generally they're working not as they should? I mean, it's a hard one because I feel like nowadays just how the society is operating, people are so like non-movement physically, so it's like, and they're really, I mean, chronic illnesses, all of. I don't see it getting like better, to be honest. I mean, a lot of symptoms are, sorry, a lot of medicine is there, a lot of research is there, a lot of drugs are there. I don't even want to call it medicine, it's like drugs to cope, actually.
Yeah.
But the actual root causes is like lifestyle, living happily, movement based life. All of these kind of things are just descended from modern society, right?
True.
Like they're not the baseline anymore. They're more like, we need to do this because we will get sick. It's like, you were living a village life before, you were already doing all of that. You were just fit, right? And you were eating healthy and you were eating organic, you were with people, you were just living that way. I mean,
Exactly.
our grandparents' generation, they lived that way, right?
Exactly. They
Yeah.
didn't even have to wonder that they have to move to get better.
Yeah, so now that gray area before you identify something as Parkinson's to something that is just kind of happening as a, like you're saying, young people are getting Parkinson's now. Now, young people getting Parkinson's sounds to me is like very environmental related, triggering something in their genetics, which they're told they have Parkinson's, so they're like, हो गया, अब तो मतलब खत्म ही है मैं,
Yeah, you're
वो
so
तो आना फिर तो Parkinson's है ही, वो तो अब मैं मान ही लिया. तो
exactly,
then
and
तो
they just try to give up that ab to kuch nahi, there's nothing that can
I
help
mean,
you.
look, if you're in a state of depression, anxiety, blah blah blah, all of that, first thing already happens is you've given up, right? You are having
Yeah,
suicidal thoughts, you want to have all of these things, right? So that
exactly.
just happens in depression, like all these mental health issues. Now, along with that, let's say it's affecting your body, which it will at some point.
Yeah, totally.
Because you're eating not well, you're not sleeping well, all of these things. So now let's say that stage is there. Now, along with that, there's the third stage where it's really affecting your neurology. And
Yeah.
something gets triggered, and doctors look at it and they're like, ये तो Parkinson हो सकता है. हो सकता है से हो गया. बोल दो Parkinson है. And then dopamine medicines शुरू कर दो to try and get them out of this. But it backfires. It creates another loop,
Yeah.
which they're addicted to this, and then they are not getting out of this state either. And Parkinson's bhi maan liya. Matlab, it's a tricky one, because we are already working with the assumption that there's no cure.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we even know what is the correct diagnosis?
That's okay. So to start with, I mean, like you have mentioned, environmental factors, stress, and nowadays, I mean, in young generation, I would like to say that I think we are glorifying burnout. We are pushing our nervous system beyond what is made it for. We are constantly stimulating our nervous system. We are constantly in rush. There's constant dopamine stimulation that leads to decrease in dopamine. So that's how you see it can be related, A, in that way, and B, like genetics that I've told you. Like there may be genes, they may be carrying recessive genes, and that can be triggered because of environmental factors, because of constant stress, because of hormones that's not even required, that needs to be in that situation, that the constant stress, the constant panicking, the constant anxiety, that leads to the cycle that you're mentioning. Then at young age there are so many people, they are the product, that's their productive age, they want to work more, they maybe want to have babies. So how can we expect that it won't lead to emotional breakdown, distressful for them? That's not even that cannot end. But again, if we come back to the point, if you're taking care of your body, if you're moving, if you're exercising well, if you're eating well, then you can decrease the chances of getting Parkinson's. It's not that it's completely curable or it's you're not going to get it. You might, if you are carrying genes, you might, if you have already disrupted your body enough, but you can delay it, you can help it to your body to get better.
Hmm. And when do you know when patients come with whatever symptoms that this is Parkinson's?
Yeah, so there are hallmark symptoms. You see tremors are there, there's posture disability, you can see a stoop posture, they're fast in walking, small steps, there's stiffness, there's tightness, that we call rigidity. So there are a lot of, I mean, there are
A
hallmarks of.
lot of these symptoms you're saying this happens in whoever's aging, they also go through this, right? So
Exactly.
how do you make that distinction? Ki this is just natural aging happening in their lifestyle, blah blah blah, and this is Parkinson's.
Because you usually don't see such kind of symptoms that you exactly are seeing in old age, and that exactly start with other, they accompany other symptoms as well. For example, you have trouble sleeping, you have problem in walking, and you're seeing you're dropping things out of nowhere that hasn't have happened before. You're seeing tremors, for instance, you're resting, there are different kind of tremors that you're seeing. So that you're resting and you can see your hand shivering. That's how you differentiate. And there are few tests when you go to a neurologist or a physiotherapist, they do certain tests to diagnose if it's completely old age or it's Parkinson's.
Hmm. And out of, let's say, just let's break it down to 1 to 10. Out of 1 to 10, as a 100% kind of dynamics, how much percentages or how much out of 10 would be in terms of age bracket? So if you were to categorize this many, like 30% Parkinson's cases are being identified age 50 above, or 30% 40 above, 30% 30 above. Like what would be an estimated number that's coming to you?
If you're talking about the typical Parkinson's, we see it after the age of 50 to 60s. But then again, you can categorize it between young onset, then the actual typical Parkinson's that we see, and the late onset. The later one starts around or later by 60 years of age, and the young ones we are seeing in around 20 age. And even there are cases, juvenile Parkinson cases as well, we are seeing it
So
before
this
the.
young and juvenile, how much percentage is this out of the 10?
Should be there are increasing number of cases right now, but out of 10 you can see around 40%.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
100% versus 40% is when you say young, like under what age?
Young is under the age of 20.
40% Parkinson's cases under the age of 20 or
Yeah. And then they are also distinguished between early onset.
and 22 जो typical Parkinson's होता है वो आपने बोला 60 above होता है usually.
हाँ हाँ
So 22
50 above, yeah.
तो 20 to 40 की एज में कितने होंगे पार्किंसंस वाले?
Um, I'm not sure about the right. 5 to 10%.
So that's not major.
Yeah, because it's increasing. We are seeing it now. That's increasing.
But
The
main increasing has happened in 0 to 20.
Yeah, that's no. The major one is the one that we are seeing around the age of 40 to 50. The typical Parkinson's.
इंक्रीज बट मैं इंक्रीजिंग नंबर पूछ रहा हूँ, मतलब कि इंक्रीज कहाँ दिखते हुए दिख रहा है बहुत ज्यादा, एकदम एक्सपोनेंशियल इंक्रीज?
Abhi, we have just started seeing young onset, but the majority is still the older age and the late onset ones.
Sure, which makes sense, but out of the 100%, if 40% are now young, under
Yeah.
20, that's a huge increase. मतलब
There.
यही नंबर 30 साल पहले तो मतलब 1% होता होगा,
Yeah.
इतना भी नहीं होगा।
Yeah.
तो 1% से 40%, 30-40 साल बहुत होता
But
है।
yeah, it is increasing.
मतलब यंग लोगों को अगर 40% पार्किंसंस केसेस 20 साल के अंदर के लोगों को हो रहा है, that's तो like that's quite
20, you can say 20 to 40, both. That's all into the young onset, early, juvenile, everything.
till 40 you mean?
Yeah.
So till the age of 40 you would say 100% में से 40% cases till the age of 40 हैं,
Yeah.
बाकी
And
60% 40 above.
yeah, that's the majority.
तो टिपिकल पार्किंसंस का जो केस है 60 एज के अबव, वो 50% तो होंगे ही,
Yeah,
है
easily.
ना?
Easily.
10% होंगे हमारे 40 to 60 वाले,
Yeah.
ज्यादा होंगे।
ज़्यादा ही है. I mean, I
तो
need
20% मान लेते हैं, so 50, 20 and 40 to 0, 30% मान लेते हैं,
yeah, you can
ना?
say yeah.
30, 20, 50 split, so 70% हमारे हो गए 50 above वाले,
Yes.
और 50 तक हमारे 30% split है।
Yes.
That 30% is a huge number, yeah.
Huge number it is.
Yeah, for the ages, young ages till 40, 50, if people, we already have 30% people out of the 100% as Parkinson's identified. And these are Parkinson's irreversible identified, मतलब cure नहीं हो पा रहा है।
I mean, there is no cure.
So मतलब in such an early stage, their body has arrived in a neurological system has arrived in a state where they are not able to move properly,
Non-reversible,
not able to
yes.
function properly,
Yes.
right?
And that keeps on deteriorating, you see.
Right. So they're completely becoming more and more dependent on others, family members, healthcare service, blah 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 blah.
Totally.
So it's a financial toll on the health services as well. Like they're just not able to do it.
Exactly.
Like families, it's a lot. I mean, people don't know, like handling somebody with Parkinson's, caring somebody with Parkinson's, not easy because it's a full-time job, because they become fully. It's like a baby, you know, like nothing is working for them. They cannot eat, they cannot go to bathroom, all of this. And if it's happening at an early stage, I don't want to call it a disability, but it's not a good sign. And it's not good for. It's not an easy one actually. To manage. It's not like you pill de do ho gaya, you know, a human being has to move, all of these other things are still happening, right? So it's not like they're gonna stop pooping or stop eating.
Exactly.
Interesting. So where are we going with this Parkinson's? Yeah, tell us. Where do you see what's gonna happen? Any breakthroughs that you see coming? What could those be like? Because the situation seems quite in a bottleneck kind of situation in terms of the treatments, and at the same time, the growth of Parkinson's is still happening exponentially.
Yeah.
So that is, yeah.
Sure. I mean, what I can again, I mean, it's sad. It's sad to hear that there is no cure. But what everyone is trying to do is to improve their quality of life. They're just trying to delay the prognosis. They're just trying to delay the disabling symptoms that people with Parkinson's are seeing. That's how they're just to maintain their quality, to maintain their social and emotional and physical abilities. That's the most best thing I would say that we can do. Sadly, unfortunately, but yeah.
Do
And
you know about these like gene therapies and all these experimentals which are ethically considered right now in a gray area? They're all
mm,
experimenting like in US, China specifically. They're doing a lot
yeah,
of gene
I mean,
alterations, super human babies and all of this stuff they're going for.
exactly.
And it's quite advanced in many ways in China. Do you think this kind of technologies could help us with genetics to kind of fight this? The good side, I'm talking about the good side of it. Do you think it could kind of be utilized in a way that could help in this Parkinson's
I
chapter?
mean, what I believe, I'm not the right person related to genes or something like the technology stuff. But what I believe is it can definitely help to understand and diagnose such diseases earlier. That's
Hmm.
how, yeah. And if we do that, it's going to be ultimate thing that
Are
we
you
can do.
familiar with epigenetics?
Yeah,
Yeah. So like epigenetics is basically activating and deactivating your genes, and it's
yeah,
kind of what yoga practices, Kundalini
yes,
practice, what yogis do. They're kind of advancing their body systems to adapt faster to changes and expand their nervous system, right? So
hmm,
they're not affected so much by the external energies. They stay more calm, conscious, not anxious, and all of those things, right? So now they're trying to hack this biologically more and more through science, altering the DNA, all of this, blah, 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 like shortcut, like
hmm,
short terms for
yeah,
yoga solutions kind of thing.
exactly, yeah,
They're trying to do it through science. I'm sure they're I don't know what's going on in the labs because I know they're creating a lot of these super babies and,
I've
like
heard of, yeah,
billionaires are also trying this. They're spending a lot of like this Chinese billionaire who's literally just infusing money into creating his own children with like
yes,
these not nannies. There's like a service to create children through what's it called, IVF or something,
yeah,
and then they are altering their genetics to create
yeah.
superhuman babies. This kind of stuff.
Yeah, but they're
Um,
see, but they're going to live in the same environment, the same. Yeah. So what?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how, like, when it's all comes become more public, and then if they find, because right now it's vested interests are power related, right? They want these superhumans to kind of control their
Exactly.
own agendas. But let's say if in a scenario where this kind of research starts coming more mainstream and solutions, and okay, if we order this gene in these people, it can help fight Parkinson, like something
Yeah.
like this, as a gene therapy. So I wonder because genes are, biotechnology and genes right now it's very weaponized for sure,
Yeah.
fully not very like fully weaponized, but there's a lot of knowledge there that if somebody or the masses get the hands on in a good way, it can really benefit people.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's not happening right now, but it could. um, yeah, what's your view on this one?
I mean, again, I mean, we will all be watching if they can. That's all. It's all in the process. So many people are doing trying to cure it. I mean, I do have people here in the university. They have background of physiology, and they are actually working on Parkinson's genes. So you never know. We are also almost there to cure cancer, and so never say never.
Hmm. You think we're almost there, like curing all kinds of cancers?
I wouldn't like to believe that.
But what is the science saying beyond beliefs? Research,
No,
numbers.
I don't think. No, I have not read much about it, so I'm not the right person to answer that.
And where's most of the money in terms of the institutional money that is going in funding research in which diseases? Is Parkinson's one of them or no?
It is. It actually is, but I would still say I think cancer is one of the
Cancer is
biggest.
the primary, and then yeah,
Yes.
okay. Okay, so now we're gonna go into another section. This was all
Mhm.
flow, by the way. This was not
Yeah,
planned.
that's okay.
Very raw. Now we're gonna go into the section of the podcast, which is very specific questions.
Hmm.
It's not rapid fire, but you have to go more direct
Okay.
with this.
Yeah.
This is the questions that is in the minds of the masses, created by our media team.
Uh-huh.
So, so I'm gonna start asking you one question at a time. I'll just ask the question, you go, and then I ask another question, you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So first question: why neuroscience and Parkinson's? What personally pulled you towards neurophysiotherapy and Parkinson's research? Was it academic curiosity, lived experience, or something deeper?
Honestly, like I've told you before, I was inspired by faculties, but then why Parkinson's? Because I think there's something so humanly about Parkinson's that it just doesn't creeps. It just doesn't comes in all at the one time. It just creeps and slowly takes your emotional, your physical abilities slowly away. And as a physiotherapist, if I can help them just reclaim any part of their bodies, their mental health, then I'll be more than happy.
Hmm. The reality of studying in New Zealand beyond Instagram aesthetics. What is the actual life of a PhD scholar in New Zealand like emotionally, financially, mentally, physically?
In short, it's draining. I mean, New Zealand is beautiful. Who wouldn't want to come here? It is. I mean, as you see, it's exactly like is, but it when I would say when freedom is there. I mean, I love freedom, I love independence, but it comes with responsibilities. So I don't like that part of it. Nobody does.
Funny.
Yeah.
India versus abroad education system. What are the biggest mindset differences between Indian education and research culture at the University of Otago? Right?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I love that there's no hierarchy. I am trained to be an independent researcher. There are so many times that I try and ask my supervisor, and they're like, "You know better. It's your research." It's not like they're putting me on spot, but they trust me more. They know that I'm doing way better. There's no right or wrong question. I'm encouraged to answer more, to ask more. There is no sir system, there is no ma'am system. We are not expected to call them sir. We are working as a team, as collaborators. So that's a really really great thing that I've observed here. To be honest, it took me a lot. I mean, it was very overwhelming for me to call my supervisor by his name. It took me a while, but then yeah, eventually you'll get a hold of it. And in India, honestly, if to be very raw, people in India, students like in India, if they are supposed to be, they are supposed to call each other, or just even this, not even supervisors or faculty, even seniors, you call them sir or ma'am. That's how the system runs. So
It's a cultural blockage in many ways in India.
exactly.
The whole
I
culture
mean,
of
it's more
like
about
private
senior.
universities, government universities, they're working in this culture.
Exactly. It's more about senior and junior. Here
Yeah.
nobody considers that you don't know anything, or you don't know stuff. I tell you, if you're answering wrong, they won't point you out at the same time. They know that you're very wrong. They'll just say you, maybe you can go back and read more about it and we can discuss more. But
Is this
they
changing in India or no? From your
I would like
understanding?
to believe there are so many young professors now, so many of my friends. So I would like to believe it is, but I don't know how practical it is, because we are living in such culture as you're saying. So I don't know how practical it is and how feasible will it be.
But what are you getting feedback from your friends who are young professors and all of that?
Oh, they're more like friends with their students.
So it is changing then.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Is studying abroad still worth it in 2026 with rising costs, visa stress, and uncertainty? Would you still recommend Indian students to go abroad today?
I mean, sure, if you have a clear purpose, come along. I mean, if you know why you want to do it.
Recruit कर रही हो?
Actually, I would like to promote myself. I do take sessions, one-on-one guidance session. I mean, if
No.
you have clear purpose, I truly believe. I recently I have had so many sessions with people, and when they say that I
What
don't
kind
care
of
about,
guidance sessions can you share more?
yeah, just like how and where to start. how you want to go ahead, because I have been there in the similar position, because PhD is something not everybody, not every consultancy can help you, because it's a direct university and student relationship. So that's how I'm helping people. It's all about that. So
Yeah.
when I hear them say that I don't care about timeline, I don't care about how stressful it's going to be, that's how you know that they know their purpose, they know that they want to do it. Because Karthik, you'll see it gets really draining. I mean, most of the time you're just running on it's a self-driven motivation.
Yeah.
Nobody's
You
here
really
to.
want to do it. Like there's no other way.
Sorry.
You really want to do it. There's no other way.
Exactly. I mean, it took me 2 to 3 years. It took me a while. It's not something that I got it in one go. It took me a while. There were breakdowns. I know I have been rejected, but when you get it, it's the ultimate happiness. It's the ultimate achievement you feel. But so yeah, I mean, if you know why you want to do it, come ahead, do it.
Nice. We went through this, but yeah, Parkinson's at a young age, a growing concern? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean, like we have talked about, it is, and most few cases are related to genes. They can be recessive, but they can mutate because of so many causes: environment, stress, chronic stress, chronic and constant stimulation. So it is concerning, because that age is something that we are expected to do a lot of things. We are in the hustle mode, and when you're getting diagnosed of such diseases, such neurodegenerative diseases, that you know it's going to get deteriorate. So it's the most burden feeling, I would say. And yeah, we are seeing so many cases of young onset Parkinson's now.
And what lifestyle patterns worry you the most?
This chronic stress, this feeling of hustling all the time, always putting yourself in a constant stress that you can do it, you can achieve it more, the social media behind it, you just have to do something. Have you heard about the 75 days hard challenge?
No. What is
No.
this?
So there's this Instagram thing that everybody is doing, then you have to do, I mean.
I don't do Instagram.
So I mean, I'm happy that people are pushing themselves to be more active, exercising, everything. But when it comes to the point that you have to, report back to your audience, you have to show that you're constant enough, you're taking I mean 2 to 3 sessions of
Seeking validation.
exactly. So if you're constantly stimulating your nervous system with when it is even not needed, that's how you see you are in trouble.
Hmm. Mind body connection and neurological healing. How much do stress, trauma, emotional suppression, and lifestyle truly impact neurological diseases like Parkinson's?
Okay. So you see, our brain do not know how to differentiate between the types of stress. When it understands there is stress, there is simple and direct signal that is sent to different organs to release hormones. And when again, if you are constantly stimulating it, the hormones stays up. The flight and flight hormones, it stays up. It keeps on releasing hormones like cortisol, and that increases your heart rate, your blood sugar, you get inflammatory diseases, and that all leads to neurology. That's all related to your nervous system. So it's everything is connected, everything is bidirectional.
Yeah. Physiotherapy versus medication, the untold truth. Can movement, neuro rehab, and physiotherapy actually slow or improve neurological conditions beyond medicines?
Okay, so it's a constant fight of physiotherapy and medicine. So how I would say is, physiotherapy was never meant to replace medicines, right? I mean, if your physiotherapist is asking you to stop taking medicines if you're in excruciating pain, then you need to change your physio. Nobody is asking you to stop taking medicines, but physiotherapy can help you delay or help you that you're not getting the same kind of injury it helps to move, lubricate your joints. And what was the neurological thing that you're mentioning? So we have so many
Neuro
different.
rehab and physiotherapy. Movement, neuro rehab, and physiotherapy.
Yeah. So you see, there are so many type of techniques that we apply to different patients. I mean, for stroke, we have defined and targeted exercises for different joints for building their proprioception, as in their sense of being in a place, their balance, their movement. So everything is targeted and everything is personalized. Of
Mm.
course, it can help. I mean, medicine does help, but it just, the physiotherapy makes sure the medicine is.
It's like they both, you need both actually. Yeah.
Exactly. It's working in a way, and but so that you don't have to keep taking medicines for the rest of your life.
Have you seen cases where, let's say, let's not call it a patient, a being who got Parkinson's, and they, through medication and movement, discipline, all of this, they were able to come out of it?
Not come out of it, but they do get better. They do have better prognosis. They do have better. When you talk to them, they really do differ from the people who do not follow their protocols and who do not follow their
But their
rehabilitations.
original condition when they came, let's say their hand was shaking this much, now it's shaking less, and they're moving slower, now they're moving faster,
Yeah,
normal. Wouldn't you? Is that happening? Does that
it
happen?
is. Of course, it is.
So
But
that's
we
that's
can't
cured.
call them that they're curing them because it doesn't go away completely.
But wouldn't you call it a kind of a cure because they're getting better?
They're just getting better, but they're not completely getting out of it. You have to keep doing the exercise and medicine combo to keep yourself well. For instance, if
But
you
this
have.
applies to normal human being as well, ना? As well, तो वो तो हम नहीं करेंगे, हम भी फिर बैठ जाएंगे.
But you see, you don't have a problem of releasing any kind of hormones or neurotransmitters, because when you work, you know that you can move your joint even without, even if you are lying on bed. I mean, you if you, even if you're injured, you can move, right? Even if you're not
They
taking med.
cannot.
Yes, they cannot if they're not taking medicines, if they're not working on their body, because it's all related to
So
their.
let's say somebody gets in a very good condition with this medication and blah 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 treatment, physical, and they come to a point कि अब मैं ठीक हो गया हूँ, and they stop.
It comes back.
It comes back. And does that? Have you seen that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, even if they, so there are so many people with Parkinson's. I mean, I would like to, we all call that people with Parkinson's because we don't want to name them as part patients. So with when we have people with Parkinson's, so there is time. You'll see that they will say that it's time for them to take medication. Why? Because that's how that's hormone that's depleted, they're indirectly kind of taking that, so that's how their life is.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Scholarships, funding, and myths. What do students misunderstand the most about scholarships, funding, and research grants abroad?
I would say the hidden costs. I mean, scholarship doesn't help you completely. Of course it does. I mean, I would always suggest students and always suggest people who ask me my advice that if you have got grants, if you have got funding, scholarship, then only move ahead. That's what I did. My main idea was to just move ahead if I get scholarship, because there are so many things that you don't even see coming. Living expenses, grocery, oh my god. You just name it. I'm living in a country, New Zealand, they have their own sheep, everything is there, but oh my god. I've got like $6 milk for like 2 liters or what, and can you imagine $5 of bread, and it's
भैंस
something.
ले जाना इंडिया से.
Sure. So it's just, and yeah, that's something I would say, that there are so many things that you need to plan ahead,
Yeah,
and if you have backup, then brilliant, there's nothing more better than that.
yeah. Okay. Work culture in New Zealand. How different is work-life balance in New Zealand compared to India? And is it really as peaceful as people think?
Oh, sure is, like, I can guarantee it, they don't.
Delhi or New Zealand? Polar opposites.
I mean, they
Best
respect
there,
your
worst
boundaries.
there.
I really like, I have, because I can easily say it because I have been part of toxic work cultures and I've just got out of it because I don't give a, sorry, yeah, let's not get into that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have been part of toxic work cultures, and here they respect your boundaries. They know what's professional, what's personal. They don't get into your personal life. If you're taking leave, your wish. If you have leave, take it. If you don't have leave, they'll just cut it out from your salary. They don't give a damn. They don't
Mm.
care if you're taking leave. But of course, if it's your pattern to keep taking leaves every week, then of course they won't call you out. They will probably ask you, is something that's bothering you? So you see, that's how it's far away. It's totally different from what we see in India and what we see in New Zealand. I can talk about New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah, got it. For students planning to go abroad, if you had to give one honest piece of advice to Indian students dreaming of studying abroad, what would it be?
Mm, don't just come because anybody else is doing it. Because I'll take my example also. If you're inspired by me, my aesthetics, my Instagram, don't come here because you like that. Come only when you know your whys, why you want to do it. Because everything takes a
अरे
back
तुमको
seat.
पार्किंसंस हो जाएगा वरना ट्रिगर होके एनवायरमेंटल हो गया पार्किंसन
So yeah, I would just say that if everything takes a back seat when you know that I wanted to do it, so that's why I'm here. Keep questioning your whys. That's why what I do. So that's why I can clearly answer that.
Yeah, gotta really know before you sign up for it, no?
Mm-hmm.
Returning to India versus settling abroad. Do you see yourself coming back to India? What inner conflicts do long-term Indian migrants face about home?
Uh,
I think
that's
it's in everybody's brain, no? This one.
that's the toughest question. I don't think I can really answer that at this point of my life because do have PhD ahead, and I don't. I really. I mean, I do miss India. I miss everything. I miss my family. I miss noise. I I miss everything. But when you start appreciating the quality of life when you get abroad, it just
Yeah.
it's difficult to answer. It's a huge topic to discuss upon.
Given brief, no? Something.
I honestly cannot answer at this point of time because I don't see myself in next few years going back to India because I have things aligned, right? But I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe if I get something, a great opportunity back in India, then why not? Who
What is
doesn't?
that? What does that look like? Give
I mean,
me
an, a,
imagination.
yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, a great position of professor in academic position. So,
But where in India? Not in Delhi, of course. So where would you want to be in
of
India?
course, in Delhi. I love Delhi.
Yeah, you like the air?
Whatever. I mean, you see, that's what that's why I can't answer you that because you say whatever. I miss India. I miss Delhi. There's nothing. I mean, I don't believe people who say, I don't miss India. I love here being abroad.
What are you missing the most? What are you missing?
Ah,
Food.
food.
Yeah.
I miss. I miss.
सारे दिल्ली वालों का यही होता है food.
And I'll tell you, I miss comfort more. I mean, everything is available readily.
Yeah,
It's
India is very convenient in many ways. Huh?
very convenient. Oh my god, it's super
Lincoln,
convenient.
this, that, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, this.
Exactly. I mean, who would want to spend $100 or $200 on their haircut, on their salon service? I mean, when I can get it in just 1,000 rupees at my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jagriti, it was wonderful having you on Raw and Unfiltered. Thank you for sharing so many beautiful gems.
Yeah.
A lot of knowledge came through you and through a podcast, which I'm sure many people who families, people who are dealing with Parkinson's in their personal lives. I have dealt with it also
Mhm.
for years, so I understand very deeply how it is, what it is. So I'm glad we could have a open and honest and very knowledge-based discussion on that. Also, thank you for sharing honest truths about the PhD programs, the abroad life, and many questions that young people are sitting with today about their careers, their life path, and all of that. So, thank you for your time.
Likewise.
Would you like
Thank
to
you.
add something more?
I think I've just told you everything that I could, and I've spoken God as a head for 1 hour. I don't have people around to speak so much, so you can see.
You're missing people, huh? You're missing community.
Yeah, I do.
There are not
And
many PhD students.
no, actually, especially in Dunedin, Auckland is full of Indian people, our culture and everything. But especially in Dunedin, where I am, it's just doesn't have a lot of people here.
How many PhD students are there with you?
Right now we are 4 people.
Okay, and they're
Yeah.
from everywhere in the world, huh?
One is from India, one is from Thailand, and the other one is from Pakistan.
Right. Nice. Oh, all Asians.
Yeah.
Interesting. Nice. Well, good luck to you.